To understand why this happens, we have to go back to the origins of the US military's approach to classification. Classification practices were born out of the need to protect wartime intelligence, especially during World War II and the Cold War, when the stakes were about as high as they could get. Back then, secrecy was necessary to protect troop movements, covert operations, and classified technologies. However, in today's asymmetric warfare environments, where adversaries like ISIS and Al Qaeda rely on decentralized networks and rapid communication, speed and agility are crucial. In this context, overclassification is a hindrance, not a safeguard. The very nature of open source intelligence, its openness, its accessibility, and its public nature makes it incompatible with traditional classification models, which were designed for Cold War era operations involving state actors. In asymmetric warfare, as seen in Syria and Iraq, timing is everything. Every minute that intelligence is delayed allows insurgent groups to move, hide, and rearm. The Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, conducted an internal review of intelligence sharing practices during Inherent Resolve and found that overclassification led to operational delays in 38%, that's almost 40%, 4 in 10 of the cases where OSINT was involved. That's an enormous figure. Nearly 4 out of 10 missions experienced delays because of overclassified intelligence. Moreover, coalition forces, including the UK and France, expressed frustration with the slow pace of intelligence sharing. They argued that the classification of open source information hindered their ability to act independently, often forcing them to rely on outdated information while insurgents had the upper hand. This also created friction within the coalition, weakening trust and collaboration at a time when unity was paramount. So why do we see this issue happen again and again? Boils down to 2 key factors that I mentioned earlier: fear and culture. The IC seems to operate on the principle that better safe than sorry applies to everything, even when it really doesn't. It's like putting a label on your sandwich that says "do not eat," classified, because you're afraid someone might take a bite. Over the years, high-profile leaks like WikiLeaks and the Edward Snowden revelations have turned this fear into a full-blown obsession. When WikiLeaks published thousands of legitimately classified US government documents in 2010, including diplomatic cables, military reports, and intelligence analyses, this sent shockwaves throughout the IC. This leak revealed not only sensitive details about US operations, but also the extent of routine overclassification. And this incident, along with Snowden's leaks, led to a tightening of classification practices across the board, even for information that wasn't particularly sensitive. In 2012, a National Security Archives study found that in the wake of WikiLeaks, US agencies classified 77 million documents in 1 year alone, an all-time high. I don't even want to think about how many of those were probably lunch orders. Even more troubling, a subsequent review showed that half of those documents could have been released without any national security consequences, though perhaps maybe a few confused glances. This overreaction created new obstacles for sharing open source information, further entrenching the culture of risk aversion. Another factor that perpetuates overclassification is the ingrained cultural belief that classified intelligence is more valuable than open source information. Intelligence officers often view OSINT as second-tier data, stuff that's useful as background information, but not central to national security. This perception is rooted in decades of reliance on covert intelligence collection methods like signal intelligence and human intelligence. However, modern OSINT can be just as valuable as classified intelligence. Last week, I attended a function of the OSINT Foundation. The key speaker was the current OSINT executive for the Office of the DNI, and he One of the things that stood out to me from his presentation was his statement that last year, uh, open source intelligence, or OSINT, made up 0.5% of the intelligence community's budget. And yet, open source reporting comprised 60% of the reporting on the president's daily briefing. Consider how the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, uses commercial satellite imagery, stuff that can be bought by anybody, basically, to track troop movements, monitor nuclear sites, and assess environmental changes. This data is available publicly, yet it's treated with the same level of security as classified intelligence, resulting in unnecessarily delays of sharing.